not to deprive a person charged with the criminal offense of the right to be presumed innocent until proven guilty, according to law in a fair and public hearing by an independent and impartial tribunal, or of the right to reasonable bail without just cause. To add insult to injury, not only were these peaceful protesters' fundamental and legal rights violated, but the Emergency Act itself was illegally invoked, as it was not properly voted on. There was also zero grounds to invoke the emergency order in the first place. The political prisoners being held here today have all received false charges of mischief with no grounds. And let's also not forget the illegal seizure of funds and frozen bank accounts. What Canadians need to understand is that the rights of those being held against their will are our rights too. And if they can do it to them, they can do it to all of us. Now, there is a huge elephant in the room that needs to be addressed. Our elected politicians and media want us to stay focused on the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms because they know that Section 1 of the Charter allows authorities to violate our rights. Yes, it's sad, but very true. But take a guess at what piece of legislation doesn't violate our rights or have loopholes. You guessed it, the Canadian Bill of Rights. And for all those who think the Charter of Rights supersedes the Canadian Bill of Rights, you might want to look up Section 26 of the Charter. You know what's even more interesting? Check this out. If you're watching at home or here today, feel free to take out your phone and Google the following words: Emergency Act of Canada. Then scroll down and click on the first link, which will be the Justice Department of Canada. You will then be taken to a page that outlines the 1988 Emergency Act in its entirety. Just 4 lines down, you can read the following for yourself. And I quote, "And whereas the Governor and Council, in taking such special temporary measures, would be subject to the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms and the Canadian Bill of Rights, and must have regard to the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, particularly with respect to those fundamental rights that are not being limited or abridged, even in a national emergency." Well, there it is, folks. Pretty clear, isn't it? Those in power are attempting to distract us with useless debates and yet won't even mention the Canadian Bill of Rights. I wonder why. We still live in a common law country, and the Canadian Bill of Rights still applies. This is also important for law enforcement, as they are not obligated to follow illegal orders. Just like how 44 out of 44 regional police departments refused to violate rights in 2021. The key to our success is to exercise those rights and create awareness before it's too late. John Diefenbaker, former Prime Minister of Canada, created the Canadian Bill of Rights to stop the spread of communism. He said, and I quote, "I am Canadian, a free Canadian, free to speak without fear, free to worship God in my own way, free to stand for what I think is right, free to oppose what I believe wrong, free to choose those who govern my country. This heritage of freedom I pledge to uphold for myself and all mankind."
Thank you, Diefenbaker.
Deep the Chief. That's who they used to call him.
You can find it on stanford.ca.
Yeah.